and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 5, Episode 13, The Dinner Party. Wow. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be recording again. I planned to record last week to get back on track after taking a couple of weeks off because of travel. But I was down for the count. I had some nasty virus, nasty cold. I don't know what was happening. It wasn't COVID. I did test myself for COVID. It was not COVID, but something else. My throat felt like someone was holding a flame to it for like 3 or 4 days. I had no energy. I really felt it was one of the worst illnesses I've had in a long time. Well, in fact, it's the worst since I've had COVID. I had COVID about a year ago, and I was convinced it was COVID because it felt exactly like that when I had tested positive last year. But I don't know, the self-test at home said it was not COVID. So I don't know what it was, but it was not fun and really put me off my schedule. It's been a tough transition back from my trip. I'm not going to lie. Between jet lag. I mean, it's not only jet lag. I was just like, I had such a crazy sleep schedule since the first day of the trip. I mean, the flight out from San Francisco to Singapore was a little bit under 17 hours. And I don't know, I was just sleeping when I was sleeping. I don't know when the hell I was sleeping as far as what time it was in any time zone. Like, it was just like, you just feel like you're floating in this kind of suspended time. And then even when I was in Asia, the whole time I just could not get on a normal sleep pattern. Like, I don't think my eyes stayed closed past 3:30 in the morning every single day. And I would even stay up all day because I was like, well, I want to just have a normal night's sleep. I want to get on the schedule here, but it just never happened. And then by the time I got back, I think I had adjusted a little bit because I was staying up all day in Asia, not sleeping very well at night. So my return here, as I'm trying to adjust, like I just had this weird, I could not sleep, but yet I wasn't sleeping during the day. So bottom line, I think maybe I got sick too because I wasn't sleeping very well. It's been a rough entry back into normal life after Asia. But I have to say, the experience was amazing. Singapore and Bali are two incredible places. I made some really good memories with my mom, so I'm so thankful for that, of course. Some of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, and with the nicest people I have ever met. Some of the nicest people on the planet live in those places. I'm actually anxious to go back. I'd love to go back and kind of do some more of the things I would want to do. We were with a big group, and so sometimes we were doing, kind of group activities, which were fun, but some of the things I wasn't as interested in as some of the other ladies. So, it just kind of hindsight, I was like, I would have done this a little differently. But it did inspire me to travel more, especially with my family, with my kids. I want them to see different places and experience different cultures and just, really, it's just important. You got to expose your kids to as much as possible so that they don't think that, their way of life is the only way to do things and that's all to be accepted. So I'm excited to do that in the future. But in the meantime, I'm glad to be home, somewhat getting on a normal schedule. My sleep is still kind of back and forth between sleeping well and then just having such spotty, weird waking up, being wide awake in the middle of the night, even though I've been home for over a week now, like a week and a half. So I don't know what the hell's going on. And then the illness didn't help. And then finally I slept through the night, and I'm definitely on the back end of this cold or virus, whatever it is. And then last night, of course, I had to get like a migraine that was really bad. And so I just did not sleep at all last night. Hey, is this Shivani's complaining podcast? I think it is. I'm sorry. I don't mean to complain. I got to go on a fantastic trip, experience some amazing things. So I'm just so excited to have those memories again with my mom. It was incredible. But I guess I'm having a little bit of a pity banter, I guess you could say. But you know what? Nothing puts things in perspective more than what I experienced last week as well. I found out that a friend of mine, she is one of the first friends I made in Colorado. One of the most amazing, sweetest people I know. So thankful she's my friend. She was diagnosed with colon cancer and had surgery last week. I mean, what the fuck? Like, it's just, she's not even 40. And she was really responsible and went in for a colonoscopy before the recommended age because she has family history and they found the cancer. And knock on wood, the doctors seem to be very positive about it and her prognosis is good because they caught it very early. But yeah, nothing puts like, oh, jet lag and I have a cold and a headache. Like, nothing puts that shit in perspective more than thinking about a friend who's going through something so incredibly scary and unpredictable and just, having something just completely flip your life upside down. And so I've been keeping in touch with her and wishing her, of course, my best. I might have had a rough time getting back to my normal schedule, but that's nothing compared to finding out something as devastating as you have cancer and we're going to have to do a major surgery and it's going to take 6 weeks for you to recover. And, it just puts everything into perspective. Okay, let's move on from complainy and preachy Shivani into this episode. Thanks for bearing with me, everyone. The synopsis for the dinner party is as follows. En route to a dinner party, Jerry and Elaine get caught up in bakery shop bureaucracy while buying a chocolate babka with a hair in it. Meanwhile, George and Kramer have trouble getting wine for the party because the liquor clerk won't accept a $100 bill, and Kramer's car is trapped by a double parker who looks remarkably like Saddam Hussein. This episode was written by Larry David. All right, we start out the episode in Jerry's apartment. Elaine tells Jerry she was Happy New Year'd that day. It's February. Jerry says he was once Happy New Year'd in March. Ugh, they're so disgusted by people. Jerry asks Elaine if it's cold out. Scary cold. Well, what's your definition of scary cold? Well, then, right at that moment, George walks in with a ginormous coat on. Jacket! Yeah! I'm trying different things for Jacket Watch, guys. I'm sorry. That was a take on Rocket by Def Leppard. It just came to me. It's really bad. They're all going to be bad. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to come up with some brilliant Jacket Watch theme song. But anyway, we have another Jacket Watch. It's been a minute. It's been a long time, actually. For those of you who don't know what the hell a Jacket Watch is, it is referring to something that Neil Brennan brought up on a Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee episode with Jerry Seinfeld. Neil Brennan is a writer and comedian. And he brought up in his episode with Jerry how he never watched Seinfeld. And Jerry was like, I don't take offense to that. Whatever. He's like, I've maybe seen like 4 or 5 episodes. And he just says to Jerry, well, every time I watched an episode, you guys were worried about a jacket. That just delighted me so much because he's not wrong. So I've taken the responsibility to track every jacket incident in the series. And so this is our 11th incident in the dinner party. George's Gore-Tex jacket. It's a big coat, big coat. And I'm always excited when we have a Jacket Watch. So Elaine and Jerry are like, what the hell is this coat? It's so huge. He can barely turn around. His father got a deal from a friend of his. It's Gore-Tex. You like saying Gore-Tex, don't you? And so Elaine and Jerry start like punching and smacking the jacket. Hey, George, can you feel this? Can you feel it? He's like, all right, that's enough. Elaine mentions that they should stop to get a bottle of wine on the way to the party. George asks, why? Because it's rude otherwise? And he says, well, I'm invited. just going because I'm invited, that's rude. And she says yes. And then George mentions, he doesn't even drink wine. He drinks Pepsi. You can't bring Pepsi, George. Why not? Because we're adults. And he's like, are you suggesting that wine is better than Pepsi? There's no way wine is better than Pepsi. And Jerry says, and I love this visual, you know what, George, I don't think we want to walk into the party and put a big plastic jug of Pepsi on the table. But George just says, look, I just hate that there's always these annoying little chores when you're invited to a party. Kramer enters and he's ready to go. Kramer asks, who's driving? Jerry says, well, I can't fit George in my car with that jacket on. My take on this scene, this opening scene cannot get more Seinfeld. And it's no wonder. It's Larry David. He wrote it. Whenever he writes an episode, I just feel it has like 4 or 5 cups more Seinfeld flavor in the episode. All the social analysis from the New Year's wishes, etiquette, to the obligation of bringing wine to a dinner party. It's just quintessential Seinfeld, and it's what it's all about. I love how they hit George in that coat. It's so childish. They hate when people wish them Happy New Year too late, but they think pounding on a big puffy coat is fine. It's just, it makes no sense, but that's why I love it. I have to say, again, learning from Seinfeld, this episode, again, this was in 1994, so I was pretty young, but it taught me, okay, you bring a bottle of wine to dinner parties. Okay, I should remember this. Look, I grew up in an Indian household. I didn't see those customs. There were other customs I saw, but I had to learn a lot of white people rituals from TV shows. I learned you got to bring wine and or cake to a party, and I should always put lotion on my hands and elbows before bed. I saw Joanna Kearns do it on Growing Pains. I saw Judith Light do it on Who's the Boss. I'm sure, who else? Mr. Belvedere, whoever the mom was on there. I'm sure there was a lotion ritual, hands, elbows right before bed. This is a very simple premise to the episode, and I love these simple episodes because it leaves a lot of room to just insert comedy in this basic structure. They're going to a dinner party and they need to pick up wine and eventually a cake and just write in a bunch of shit as they're doing that. So it's not too complicated of a premise. So like that simplicity, I think for anyone who has aspirations to write sitcoms or movies or something like that, sometimes it's so much easier if you keep it simple. Just keep the structure simple. Like this is what they're doing, and then you could just have much more room to play. All right, next we're in Kramer's car. Jerry is cold. He's trying to get Elaine to snuggle with him to warm him up. She pushes him away. Get off of me. This amuses George and Kramer in the front seat. Jerry points out that George must be comfortable up there, bubble boy. Elaine's thinking about it. She says, you know what? The 4 of them can't show up with just 1 bottle of wine. Oh, here we go. George is like, you know what? Why don't we just bring a couch? Just pull up with a nice sectional. Kramer laughs at that. Elaine decides on bringing some cake as well. So she asks Kramer to stop off at a bakery. George suggests just getting ringdings from the liquor store. Ringdings? George argues ringdings are better than anything you're going to find at a bakery. Oh, I like ringdings. George, you can't show up to someone's house with ringdings and Pepsi. George theorizes that, you know what, he'd be the hit of the party if he showed up with ringdings and Pepsi. People would be coming up to him all night. Just between you and me, I'm really excited about the ringdings and the Pepsi. Elaine sees the bakery and tells whatever his name is, Jerry, to come in with her. Kramer says he and George will get the wine and we'll pick them up in 10 minutes. My take on this scene, I do love at the top of the scene, Jerry trying to get Elaine to warm him up. It's uncharacteristic, I think, to be that physical, but I do like how Elaine pushes him away. As I was making my notes, I was like, you know what? Elaine is really calling the shots here with all of the party etiquette. And I think that's appropriate that George is the one fighting her on it, but Jerry and Kramer just kind of accept her ideas. Like, all right, yeah, I guess we got to do that. The couch line always gets me. I love how he says sectional. And I also love how Kramer openly laughs. I think that's pretty rare, seeing them in character give it up for someone else saying something funny. You usually don't see that. So I actually think it's such a little moment, but Kramer laughing out loud at George's couch comment is really, I don't know, it's delightful. I love seeing that. It's no wonder that The really great George episodes are the ones that Larry David writes. This whole rant about ring dings and Pepsi, it's one of my favorite George moments of the series. It's just so perfectly written. It's so quintessential George. And we get this fun Elaine and George dynamic from the get-go. I've said it many times on this podcast, but greatest relationship in the show, George and Elaine for sure. All right, next we're at the bakery. Ooh, Jerry gets excited. He sees the black and white cookie and he goes into this little diatribe comparing it to racial harmony. And Elaine's response is just, I'm looking forward to seeing you when you're senile. Elaine says that they're getting the chocolate babka. It's their specialty. Love that babka. Yeah, yeah. Jerry, for whatever reason, feels the need to tell Elaine that he doesn't want to carry the box with the string. You think it's effeminate? It's a tad dainty, which gets an eye roll from Elaine. Very warranted eye roll. Elaine notices that they should have taken a number, and so many folks who got there after them got numbers. That's not fair. We were here before them and her. So she spots a woman and she wants to ask her for her number. Jerry tries to stop her, but she insists. They walk on over and Elaine says, "Excuse me." My take on this scene, it's not much. It's just kind of establishing the bakery and the conflict that will ensue with taking the number. I think it's very on brand for Jerry to get excited about a cookie. He loves his cookies, his sweets. Once again, Elaine is calling the shots. She knows what she wants, the chocolate babka. And it's also on brand with Jerry to not want to appear effeminate by holding the babka box. And I love that we see Elaine roll her eyes at that because, come on, Jerry, what the hell? So stupid. And I like how the scene ends with Elaine approaching the woman about the number. The whole, "Excuse me." Like you can feel the, not yet tension, but just, well, I guess, yeah, a little bit of tension. Like that's going to be awkward. You know it going in. But I love that our Elaine goes in anyway. All right, next we're in Kramer's car. They're having trouble finding a parking spot. George suggests double parking, but Kramer doesn't want to. He'll get a ticket. George says, you know what, just stop. You go into the liquor store and he'll wait in the car. And Kramer kind of suggests the opposite. But George says, look, I can wait in the car because I've got the coat on. I won't get cold. And Kramer says, well, I'll put the heat on. The heater even work in this car? No. And then they see an open spot right in front of the liquor store. What luck. Next, we're back at the bakery. Elaine's in an argument with that ticket woman, saying they were there before her. Well, how do I know that? The actress who plays this woman, who is Barbara Benedict, as we've come to find out, her name is Susie Sorrow. And at the time that they made this episode, she was a stand-up comedian. And now it looks like she's more of a comedy writer and doesn't really act very much. There's only 4 credits to her name. But she does have a comedic blog. And I read a couple of the entries. They're very funny. I love her in this performance. This uptight woman. We've all met this woman. Immediately on the defensive. She's such a great match for Elaine's attitude. So I think Susie Sorrow plays this so well. I love the delivery of her lines. I just love her performance is fantastic. So back to the scene. The woman's husband's even downing them. Well, that's what you say. Elaine mocks their accusal. Oh, yeah, this is what I do. I make up stories to get ahead in line in bakeries. And suddenly Elaine realizes something and asks the woman if she's Barbara Benedict. Well, it turns out they actually know each other. They met at Linda Van Grack's baby shower. And then even Jerry and David recognize each other. They're all going to the same party afterwards. Well, this is a bit awkward, isn't it? Yes, it is. I love that delivery. Well, Elaine's not backing down. She kind of softens and says, we were here before you. You're not getting my number. Oh, so you still don't believe us? Then we hear the number 47 being called. Barbara holds up her ticket and says, that's us. Elaine threatens to tell everyone at the party what a jerk she is. And Barbara points out, well, I'll be there before you and I'll be telling everyone what a jerk you are. She turns back to the counter and asks for the chocolate babka. The woman behind the counter says, you're lucky, Mrs. Benedict. It's our last one. My take on this scene, I like this time jump to see Elaine already in the middle of the argument with this woman. We knew that was going to be happening with her approaching her. Asking for her number. Such a useful writing device to sort of jump time, especially when you have limited time, like in a sitcom like this. And even if you don't have limited time, we don't really need to see the buildup. Let's just get to them arguing because that's the fun stuff to watch. I love how this progresses. Elaine's realization about who the woman is and how they know each other. It's great how she thinks this will sort of soften Barbara, but how fun that she just digs her heels in. I mean, this woman's a lot like Elaine. Like, Elaine wouldn't back down either. Like, no, you're not getting my number. The entire interaction between Barbara and Elaine is one of my favorite things of the episode. It's so fun. And I hate to admit it, I love Elaine, but I would side with Barbara here. Come on, Elaine. It's no one else's fault that you didn't understand the rules of the bakery. It's a classic case of you snooze, you lose. And in this case, you lose the chocolate babka. All right, next we are at the liquor store. George wants to hurry. It's hot in here. Or he's just hot in his Gore-Tex coat. Kramer is enjoying looking at all the wine, telling George about the characteristics, about the types of wine. Finally, Kramer picks out a $12 bottle. Of course, George is pissed. You know they're not getting any $12 cake. Kramer will have to pay George back later. You know, he never carries a wallet. It's bad for his back. It throws his hips off kilter. So you never take your wallet? What do? Oh, Kramer gets by. All right, next we're back at the bakery. Smug bug Barbara Benedict leaves with the chocolate babka. Elaine and Jerry are so distressed. They're going in first with the last babka. They're going to be heroes. Then they look for something else. No, they don't want a carrot cake. They don't want a Black Forest cake. No Napoleon. Elaine asks about something she's seeing in the case. That cinnamon babka. Well, Jerry says, we got to get that. Elaine's not excited about this. She thinks cinnamon babka is a lesser babka. Jerry is so offended. Cinnamon takes a backseat to no babka. People love cinnamon. It should be on tables with salt and pepper. He just is very passionate about cinnamon. Lesser babka? I think not. The actress who plays the woman behind the counter in the bakery is played by Catherine Cates, who worked on a ton of shows during her lifetime. She actually died earlier this year from lung cancer. And I think she's perfectly fine in this episode. I think she's exactly who you'd expect to deal with in a New York bakery. Great cough acting as well. Finally, their number is called. Elaine orders the cinnamon babka and Jerry orders the black and white cookie. Peace. My take on this scene, Jerry gets most of the comedy in this scene with his rant on cinnamon. It's very funny. I like that he's inexplicably appalled at Elaine's dismissal of cinnamon. Like where the hell did this come from? All right, so this is a little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to share how I remember feeling so proud that I knew who Mengele was when Elaine says, Napoleon, why should he have a cake? He was a ruthless warmonger. They may as well call it a Mengele. Now, for those of you who may not know, Joseph Mengele was a Nazi doctor who conducted extremely inhumane experiments on the prisoners of Auschwitz during the Holocaust. I remember learning about him in my 8th grade history unit about World War II. I remember it because I had an incredible teacher, Mr. Wasson, at Churchill Junior High School in Royal Oak, Michigan. He made this unit of history just sing. Like it was, everything he taught was amazing. But the World War II stuff really stuck with me because it was just, obviously anyone who knows about what happened, just so incredibly impactful. Things you just don't forget, especially if it's taught with such passion. Like I had the great fortune to be in Mr. Wasson's class because that's how he taught it. Yeah, I do remember learning about Joseph Mengele, and it was very graphic. I remember kind of going like, I'm in 8th grade. Should I be hearing about this stuff? He would show us pictures of the bodies from the gas chambers. It was really, really horrific stuff that I'm so thankful to have learned about because it just seems like nowadays people want to erase history rather than actually fucking learn about it. So very thankful that I had that experience. But anyway, that's all to say. When Elaine said Mengele in this episode, I felt very smart. All right, next we're in the liquor store again. George tries to pay for the wine with the $100 bill. The guy's like, I can't take that. All right, let's go. George is excited. He's like, fine, we're not getting any wine. Kramer says, wait a second, I can get change. He exits and starts shouting on the street for change for a $100 bill. George freaks out. You can't do that. Kramer says they should buy something to get change. Of course, George is totally against this idea. But then they go to a newsstand. He tries to just buy a pack of gum, but it's the same issue. The guy's like, you got to buy more than that for me to break 100. So he adds a newspaper, a Clark bar. Keep going. Then a penthouse forum. George doesn't want to get that. Kramer's like, no, it'll be great dinner party conversation. It's not real. It's all fake. Oh, no, it's real. Fine. Gum, paper, Clark bar, penthouse forum. So then he pays for that, and George figures out that with the wine, he's in over $20. Of course, cheap-ass George is not happy. As he turns to pay, he runs into a guy, and the guy gets so angry. Big coat, big coat. Yes, I'm sorry, it's a big coat. Kramer says, you better be careful with that coat. You're going to start a war. All right, back at the bakery, Jerry and Elaine are waiting in line, I believe, to pay for the cinnamon babka. And Jerry is eating his black and white cookie, going on and on about how it's the perfect combination, chocolate and vanilla, and how you need to get each flavor in each bite. And somehow racial harmony eludes us. Elaine sarcastically suggests he should really do an op-ed piece for the Times. Look to the cookie, Elaine. Look to the cookie. Jerry raises his cookie to a black man on the other side of the bakery, and he does the same. Elaine notices, there's a hair on the babka. Oh, gross. Jerry says, let's get another one. Elaine tries, but this guy says, hey, I'm online here. Elaine tells that same woman about the hair, but she says, you need to take a number. Elaine's like, we waited 15 minutes for this. You sell me a cake with a hair on it, and now you want me to wait? She sees Jerry taking a number. What, you're going to wait now? And he's like, well, I'm not going to eat a cake with a hair on it. It wasn't a big deal. It was a little hair. Do you think that makes it better? And then they both point out, well, what if it was your hair? Elaine brags, look, my hair is clean, okay? And Jerry's like, well, no, you use that rainwater herbal stuff. I use Prel, the hard stuff. Elaine's like, fine, we'll just wait. And Jerry's kind of losing his nerve. Well, you know what? Maybe we should just forget about the cake. No, I'm bringing cake. My take on this scene, it's mostly transactional. We just need to see Jerry eating the cookie and the discovery of the hair on the cake. I do love that moment, raising the cookie to that black man across the room. It's so silly. So I have to side with Jerry here. I would not want to keep a cake with a hair on it. I'm actually surprised Elaine would be fine with just taking it off. But I can see her side too. In the interest of time, I think she just wants to get to the party. But come on, a little hair on a cake? Gross. It's also so ridiculous that bakery woman tells Elaine to take a number again. I liked Elaine's strategy to say loudly that her cake had a hair on it so that all the other patrons could hear. But then Jerry just relents and takes a number, totally spoils her plan. Or cake blocks her. Oh. Her outburst at the end, no, I'm bringing cake, is so fun. She's so desperate to be a good guest and also stick it to Barbara Benedict. And there's no way she's showing up without a cake. And I totally get it, Elaine. I can see exactly where she's coming from. All right, next we're back at the liquor store. George is so bitter. Oh, great. We get the wine. Imagine if we didn't bring the wine. We'd be shunned. Outcasts. Where's your wine? Get out. Such a classic George rant. Kramer starts reading from the Penthouse Forum. So, okay, for those of you who might not know what Penthouse Forum is, I believe it was like a section of a Penthouse magazine of these like sexy stories people would write in. They're very famously, I think, known to be fake and like these aren't real. People are just flexing some creative writing muscles here. So anyway, that's what the Penthouse Forum is. They go outside and discover they're double parked in, and there's no note. George and Kramer are waiting, so annoyed. Kramer asks George about his shoes. Are those comfortable? No, they're not comfortable. They look comfortable. I know, that's why I bought them. All right, next we're back at the bakery. Elaine is not letting this go. She's pressing Jerry. Why couldn't we have just taken the hair off? And then Jerry shares a really tough story about how he found a hair in his farina when he was little and it just scarred him for life. Finally, they get called to the counter. You sold us a hair with a cake around it. We'd like another. The lady gets another cake while she's hacking up a lung. It's disgusting. Jerry's like, oh, that's nice. You want to trade hair for some phlegm. All right, so finally they've got the cinnamon babka, and Elaine's wondering, where are George and Kramer? My take, there's not a ton to say about this scene. Jerry gets most of the comedy here. The best line, I think, is, you sold us the hair with the cake around it. I love Elaine's attitude. And, oh my gosh, the coughing is just so gross. All right, now we're in Kramer's car. Kramer is honking, shouting for the double parker to show himself. George is scared because they're in big trouble. Elaine. He admits he's kind of scared of her. You're scared of Elaine? Yeah, George says. Have you ever seen her lose her temper? One time he was late buying a Panama hat and she got so mad she pulled the hat down and his head came right out the top of it. And Kramer says, look, they need to go inside. He's freezing. Well, why didn't you wear a coat? Because I wanted to look good for the party. This is like a mini jacket watch because they're talking about Kramer's coat, but I'm not going to put it on the list. Okay, guys? They think they see the double parker and George yells at him. And then the guy says, back off, puffball. It's not my car. I wasn't talking to you. All right, next we're at the bakery. Elaine is seething. Wait till she gets her hands on George, she says. She's going to pull down that hood and suffocate him. Remember that Panama hat? That was nothing. Jerry's distracted. He's not really listening. His stomach hurts. He thinks it was the cookie. The black and white? Not getting along? It's like I got David Duke and Farrakhan down there. Well, if we can't look to the cookie, Elaine mocks him. He's like, oh my God, I think I'm going to throw up. What about your vomit streak? I know, I haven't vomited since June 29th, 1980. A man walks by and presses his cane into Elaine's toe. Oh my God, it hurts her so much. She's like, what are you doing, you lunatic? And he looks down at her and says, sorry. God, Elaine is in so much pain. She tells Jerry, I think he broke my toe. Oh, Jerry gets up. He has to head to the bathroom. 14 years down the drain. My take on this scene, I love impatient, increasingly irritated Elaine. Her little rant about what she's going to do to George always gets me. I love how she can barely say the word suffocate through her rage. Suffocate him. It's so perfect. Okay, and then now to address one of the weirdest moments in the series. The way that guy says, sorry, to Elaine after he puts his cane on her toe. What is that? I don't understand. I was hoping there would be some insight on the DVD about why that voice. It doesn't really appear to come from that actor. It seems like it's ADR'd in, which means it's like dubbed in. And even the face he makes when he's walking away, it's all very bizarre, very memorable, but very bizarre. All right, we're back at the liquor store. George and Kramer are waiting inside, and Kramer is shivering. The guy at the store wants him to get out. It's not a hangout. But my friend has hypothermia. He's like, all right, guys, take it outside. George can't believe it. He turns around to Kramer, but his coat knocks over a bunch of bottles of wine. The guy looks at him and says, you're paying for these. And Kramer, of course, falls in the spilled wine. We're back at the bakery. Jerry exits the bathroom after vomiting. As good as it gets. Next, we're on the street. Both George and Kramer have no coats on. George had to give up the Gore-Tex coat to pay for the broken wine bottles. Then they see the double parker and they think it's Saddam Hussein. And he gives them some advice. You better wear a coat in this weather. Back at the bakery, now the woman behind the counter is telling Jerry and Elaine to scram. George and Kramer finally arrive. George is trying to explain to them what happened. We were double parked in. It wasn't our fault. He asks Elaine what happened to her. Someone put a cane on my foot. Just like the one I'm going to put up your... Hey, what happened to your coat? And what's that smell? What are you, drunk? And George explains he had to give his coat to the liquor store guy. He spilled some Chardonnay and asks, what did you guys get? Cinnamon babka? Cinnamon? Why didn't you get chocolate? George. Then we finally see them get to the party. They give the cake and wine to, I'm assuming Linda. I think it was her Linda Van Grack's party. And they all say, see ya. They're all just so done. They don't have the energy to even enter the party. My take on these last few scenes, the interaction between George and Elaine, it's just the best. I keep saying it, but I love... In this scene in particular, I love how nervous you can tell George is. He's so frantic to explain to Elaine where they were, and it wasn't his fault. And that calm way Elaine starts to describe what she's going to do to George. So perfect. And you see George's reaction as she's saying, just like the one I'm going to stick up your... She gets interrupted, but, it was asshole. And you can see how scared George is. Best relationship on the show. I love it. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. Hi, I'm Lonnie Poutface, and I use a cane. Do you use a cane? If so, let me guess, you've had your fair share of mishaps. Maybe you hurt yourself, or maybe you hurt somebody else. That's why I started Cane Etiquette, a 4-part workshop that will teach you the basics of cane safety, so you don't hurt yourself or anyone else with a cane. Cane etiquette can help you whether you're a cane rookie or a cane veteran. It's never too late to become master of your cane. I will teach you the basics of cane use, proper distance, pressure, and grip. And it's not all boring practical uses either. I also teach you some cool twirls, flips, and spins. There is also a self-defense portion of the workshop, because sometimes you need to cause pain with your cane. To sign up for Cane Etiquette, just call me, Lonnie Poutface, at 555-HOBBLE. That's 555-HOBBLE. For a limited time, your enrollment in Cane Etiquette includes a free jug of Pepsi and 4 ring dings, and a signed autograph picture from either Dean Cain or Michael Caine, your choice. So sign up for Cane Etiquette and never worry about a cane mishap ever again. Cane Etiquette. Be sane with your cane. Please note that only residents of Connecticut can attend Cane Etiquette. For this inconvenience, I can only say, sorry. And we're back. Okay, there were really no notable extras for this episode, so I'm going to move on to Contributor Corner. Our trusty contributor Greg sent in thoughts this week, and this is what he had to say about the dinner party. He says, "This is another great episode, and I love how it plays out in real time versus jumping back and forth amongst storylines. It's all for going to a dinner party. Simple, but excellent." Same wavelength, Greg. Again, yes, the simplicity of this premise is what makes this episode so great. Next, Greg says, "I love the opening where Elaine and Jerry are making fun of George's coat and then start smacking him. It's so childish and it cracks me up." Oh my gosh. I said the exact same thing. So childish. But aren't we don't we have these childish moments with our closest friends? We know it's stupid, but that's what makes those friendships so special, the silliness. Greg goes on to say, "This is another episode where we get to see a lot of Elaine anger towards George. No matter what he says, she's already prepared to snap at him. It starts with the ring dings and Pepsi remarks and comes full circle at the end when she's already mad about the babka and her crushed toe, and she says she's going to shove the cane right up his... ... Yes, we're just continuing on this same wave together, Greg. This relationship is fantastic, and I don't feel like Elaine meant to be this snappy towards George, but he started it as soon as he questioned the whole wine errand before the party. She was just like, "All right, you're an idiot. I'm just nothing you say tonight is going to be anything I can support or not snap at." So yeah, just again, best relationship. And I have to say, Greg is the one that pointed out how amazing this relationship is. I knew that they had a great relationship, but I never kind of recognized that it is really the most entertaining relationship on the show. So thanks, Greg, for that. Moving on, Greg says, "Elaine and Jerry have a great dynamic in the entire bakery story where they both are teaming up against the other couple and then they pay for having waited around. I don't blame Elaine for wanting to get a new babka when she finds the hair. If you had left the bakery, I understand letting it go, but you had just got the babka, so yes, exchange it." But Greg, didn't Elaine, she was the one to sort of say, I'll just take it off. It's not a big deal. So I don't think she actually wanted to exchange it. She was fine with taking the hair off and just letting it go, but it was Jerry that sort of insisted on it. So I don't know if you meant to say Jerry wanting the new babka, but either way, I am with exchanging the fucking babka. Gross. Hair on food, I just, okay, I think in reality, is it really going to be putting some disgusting germs on the food? No, probably not. I'm sure someone's tested what a hair does to food if it's in there, but it's just icky. All right, Greg's final thought. My favorite Elaine line is when she says, "You almost took my toe off. Why don't you watch what you're doing, you lunatic? It's both pain and anger, and her delivery of it is perfection. I also love when George retells a story of Elaine pulling his hat down over his head and his head coming right through the top of it. The idea of her doing that is both believable, and I almost wish I could have seen a flashback of this happening. It is a really, really fun visual. Oh my God. It just like, like that Elaine face while she's doing it. Just her teeth gritting. It's probably similar to when she rips off his toupee in a future episode. I mean, what a great thing. I kind of wish we would have seen that too. Thank you so much, Greg, for sending in thoughts this week. If you would like to become a contributor to Hot and Heavy, please email me at elainepodcast@gmail.com. That's elainepodcast@gmail.com. And you could have thoughts read on a future episode. All right, my favorite Elaine moments. I'm going to, again, echo what Greg says. I'm going to have to say it's pretty much every interaction with George in this episode, start to finish. Her lecturing him about bringing the wine, mocking his suggestions of ringdings and Pepsi. And then the end when she's threatening him. And I was thinking about this. This is just another level of their relationship, because why is she only taking this out on George? Technically, it is sort of her fault. I mean, she's the one who insisted on making these stops, and George didn't want to do any of it. But she's going to take it out on him. Apparently, it's only George's fault, but that's why we love both of them. And my final notes. I love this episode. As I said before, it's so perfectly Seinfeldian with the writing and the subject matter, a story structure with a pretty simple premise, and it's just jam-packed with so many comedic moments within. I loved the pairings here, Jerry and Elaine together, Kramer and George together. And I feel like we see Jerry and Elaine paired up quite a bit in the series, but we're not treated to a George and Kramer storyline together by themselves that often. It happens, but not that often, especially up until this point in the series. I love it. I mean, they're so great together. And just overall, there's a great balance with each pair and the time allotted and the comedy assigned to each. It was really, really well balanced. This episode is really just a heightening of how every character's night gets worse and worse. I mean, in the end, Jerry threw up, broke his streak. Elaine has maybe a broken toe. Kramer is hypothermic, and George lost his prized Gore-Tex jacket. It's fantastic. Again, like that's another example of the balance. They all have things that happen to them throughout the night that for each of them personally hurts them or like devastates them emotionally. Like it's like they've all gone through some shit through the night. I do think Elaine doesn't get as much of the comedy as I would have liked, but I like that she's leading the episode's plot points. We do get some fun moments, and I love everything about JLD's performance. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we get so many of my favorite Elaines represented. Annoyed Elaine, enraged Elaine, stubborn Elaine, condescending Elaine. I mean, how can I complain about that? I mean, that is comedy within itself. So maybe I should take that back. She does get a lot of comedy. There was so much Elaine. I shouldn't complain. I did enough of that in the beginning of this episode with my sickness and my jet lag, you guys. And finally, Larry David created a masterpiece with this episode. So incredibly well done. And I think that's all I can say about the dinner party. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for your patience. Feels great to be back behind the microphone. Thank you so much for listening. And I will see you next time.